like Mark said, cool. So I'll get going. Like I said, my name is Alex Coleman. And I assume that everybody here is here because you guys are interested in renovating properties. I always like to start off with, like, so I'll get more into my story, but just the fact of like being okay with getting going and having your setbacks and things not going quite as you plan. And the reason I say that is because even for me today, like I still have things that I go through. Still like every deal isn't perfect. I run into problems on deals, things like that. So if you tried before and failed, or you're afraid to get started for some reason, welcome to the club. You're like a bunch of us that have tried and things don't go quite as we plan. Um, but it's a lot to this business, and it can be overwhelming, especially like working with contractors. And things like that. So tonight, I'm going to talk through some of those things just to help you guys get going and make it a little bit easy and hopefully clear up, some of the questions and concerns you guys may have around renovating. So before I really get going, I'd like for you to think. And at the end of this, when we open up the comment section, um, I'm gonna come back to this and ask y'all this. It's a very, very important question. And I know you're here and you're ready to take control of your financial future and learn how to make money in real estate and rehabbing. But like beyond buying things, like material things or physical things, like what is the reason, like why you're here? Like, and dig deep into your thought process about like what you really want that is beyond material. And the reason I say that is because, again, like in any business, whether it's real estate, restaurants, whatever you own, it's always going to be like trials and tribulations. And it's like as you acquire things and they don't motivate you as much as they did previously, like you have to find, um, excuse me, I hate to do that, but I'm trying to get over this cold. But you have to find a reason to keep going and keep on pushing, right? So, like I said, I know you guys, a lot of y'all don't know me. So that's the real estate part of me. The other part is, I have a daughter. She is 15. She's about to be 16. When she was 17 months old, around 17 months old, we found out that she had autism. And she's nonverbal. She goes to a school for children with special education. So my daughter is somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. She's pretty dependent on her mom and I, right? So it's like from that moment, like I always promised her that I would show her the world. And so like that keeps me going. That's my why. Like she's my why. So when I don't feel like doing things or, I'm no longer motivated by the things that I thought I wanted when I first started, I look at her or I see her and it pushes me to just keep going, just knowing that like her livelihood and her future, to a large degree is contingent upon me being able to be successful. So it goes beyond me or a watch or a car, things like that, that initially I felt like I'd be motivated by long term. So again, just think on that and, we'll revisit it at the end. So my goal for this training is, like I said, to help people who are new at investing, helping you guys like get a basic understanding of like different kinds of financing, how to find contractors, how to work with contractors, things like that. And for investors who may have done a few deals already, my goal is just to, help you guys improve the management of your projects or, the look at different various ways of funding and things like that. Like we always can become better at what we do. So we all here to just grow and learn and get better. So what you'll learn from this training is first I'll start off with what I learned from the mistakes I made on my first flip. Then I'll move into different ways to finance properties. I'll mainly discuss just 4 different ways, how to find good contractors and kind of like how to structure the payments and agreements with the contractors to, maximize that relationship, I'd say. So my first flip, or should I say my first attempted flip, was actually a little before the property I had done in 2009. And I can't remember the exact date of this property, but I want to say it was around like 2003, 2004. I think I had just finished up with college. And I had been working for a friend of mine as a day laborer. So those guys were doing construction. My job, I got paid $50 a day. And my job would pretty much be to come to the property and just keep it clean. Like the guy would tell me like, man, I don't want to see you walking around here without a broom. Like my whole job was pretty much just to clean up behind him and like labor, like move drywall, move concrete, things like that. I mean, like nothing really meaningful, just labor. But I just wanted to be around it because I had seen what a renovated property looked like. And I told him that I wanted to learn. So eventually, the same friend came to me with an opportunity. It was a house in West Baltimore on Division Street. And he said, hey, I got somebody who wants to sell a property. I want to sell it for 5,000. Do you want to put up half? And I put up half. So I was like, cool, sounds good. He was like, I'll do the work. You just pay for half of the money, and I'll do the labor. So I pay for half of the property, which was 2,500 each, and then I pay for half of the cost of labor. And he was going to do the work. So I was like, cool. So after a few months, the house was still sitting, still sitting, still sitting. He hadn't done anything to it. Um, I'm complaining to a friend of ours, and I'm like, man, I bought this house. It's just sitting. He's not doing any work to it, whatever, whatever, whatever. A friend of mine is like, well, I know this guy, and this guy's a contractor. He can do the work. So I meet with this guy, and one thing I would say is like, don't be too eager, to rush into something to the point where like you ignore the red flags that you see. Like just seeing this guy, I should have known that something was wrong, but like I was so desperate to get work going, and I didn't know anybody that I pretty much would have hired anybody. So this guy tells me, he's like, yeah, I can do construction, whatever. He's like, I can do construction. I've done this house, that house, this house, that house. So he gives me these addresses to these properties. He's like, you can go and look at the properties, but you can't go inside of them because they're on the market. Me being a complete fool at the time, I'm like, yeah, sounds good. So I go and I look at these properties, and I look through the window. I'm like, oh, they look good. They look good. And I'm like, cool, sounds good. So I bring him down to the job. We walk through it. He gives me a price, and I'm like, all right, let's go. So first mistake, he's like, all right, well, just give me 5 grand to get going. And then, I'll come back to you when I need more money after I have some work done. I pay him 5,000. He goes and does a bunch of like, I don't even know. Like he does random stuff, like maybe hung one door. I remember it being like a base cabinet with just a sink in there. He did like one window, just a bunch of random things, nothing like in any order. I didn't know anything about like draw schedules and like in order to the way that work was supposed to be done. But just me doing one project with my friend as a laborer, in my mind, I knew how to manage projects. So of course, it didn't go as planned. He came back to me for another 5,000 after he did a few things. I gave him another 5,000, and nothing really was getting done. And after probably, I guess, like a month or two, the guy who I originally had partnered with, he came to the project, and he was like, "Man, what the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like the guy's doing the work. He's like, "How much did you give him?" Like, I gave him 10,000 so far, and he's like, "Man," he fired me, fired the guy. We both got kicked off the job. The house sat for about, I don't know, maybe like 2 years or so. And then we eventually ended up selling to somebody, and moved on from there. But it was looking back on it, I always tell that story because, like people may see like now I've come a long way. Like it's been a long time. So I've learned a lot. But like originally I started, in the same situation, like just trying to find my way through. So I always have empathy for people that are getting going and trying to figure it out. And whenever I can, I always try to like reach back and give information that could be helpful to other people. So that's kind of my story and my, definitely one of my failures, I'd say. And in hindsight, I realized how fortunate I was to have that early on because I was way like ahead of myself as far as like how good I thought I was at the business, and I really didn't know anything. So I needed that initial setback to like really to a lot of times when we fail or something goes wrong, it's like that's when we tend to like really learn and pay attention to like what we did wrong, what we could have did different to prevent it from happening again. Had it all went right, I probably would have just continued on in the same manner. So here's what I learned from that. In addition, all referrals aren't created equal, meaning that Let's say if I am looking for a contractor and I ask another contractor for a referral, like say someone who I think does similar work to mine or better, I ask them for a referral, like that referral isn't equal to somebody like my other friend who referred me a contractor, but he wasn't in the business at all. I learned that you should have a detailed written scope of work, like outlining what exactly will be done and when it will be done. So that way you have something to go back on. So if it's like, okay, I'm doing plumbing, electrical, HVAC, then I know, okay, when plumbing, electrical, HVAC is done, this is what I owe you for that. Instead of me, he just gave me an idea what he would do, and I just went along with that. Actions are more important than words because people talk a good one. Like you got to be careful with how good people talk. You want to try to back up their conversation with like the actual actions of getting things done and not just what people say they can do. Like people promise you, the world and anything, especially in this business. Excuse me. And to take accountability for my mistakes. And I write this down because this is very important. It's like in anything that goes wrong, I always try to figure out what my part in that was. So for years I was looking for this guy. Like I was like, man, I was just looking for him, because I'm like, he took my money and he disappeared, and I was upset at him. And then eventually I had like a shift in my mindset to learn to take accountability for all the mistakes. And I realized that that's the only value that I would get out of that situation because as long as I blamed him for what happened, like I never really would learn from the mistake that I made. So, the mistakes I played in, how I paid him, not had all these things that I'm saying I learned. Initially, I didn't understand those things. Like it just felt like I had been taken advantage of, and like woe is me kind of thing. And nothing comes from that. Like I wasn't learning anything as long as I was blaming him and not taking accountability for myself. So now I got that out the way, you guys understand, like kind of like my backstory of, my first horror story of renovating. And after that, like I said, I tightened up a lot and I learned a lot from that. Um, so now let's just dive right into it. So it's four ways to fund deals, right? I'll go through each one and I'll start with what tends to be the more advanced and then like back it down into like where people kind of get started, right? And it'll make sense in a second. Just hang in there with me. So banks. So banks, usually smaller community bank, credit unions, savings and loans, are going to be your lenders, right? Instead of the bigger banks like Bank of America. The neighborhood banks are usually better because they offer products for small investors that are familiar with the communities they work in, right? So we're talking about four ways to fund renovation projects. So you can use a bank. I would suggest like a smaller community bank. And again, some of the reasons are just because they're smaller, they tend to be easier to work with. And a lot of times, like they have products in place for local investors, right? So they may have like one of my banks, they have a renovation product that they do like the numbers, whatever, but they have a product in place where they do renovations for small investors. Um, Whereas though when you go to like a Bank of America and things like that, it can be harder, a little more red tape than a small like community bank. And then with community banks, I believe it's easier to develop relationships. So I go to a small bank and they may have three or four branches in Baltimore. It's easier for me to get in contact with a decision maker than it is for like a Bank of America. So if I have a loan where it may be like questionable whether they want to do it or not. I'm able to go in there and actually talk to somebody who has the power to take it back to somebody that makes a decision, right? So that's important when dealing with banks. And it allows you to build relationships with banks that value your business a little bit more. I mean, if I take, let's say a small rental portfolio of like four houses to Bank of America, like they don't look at that relationship the same way like a neighborhood bank would look at it. So that's just why I prefer. Like I've had more luck working with neighborhood banks. And for most people, unless you're doing like BRRR, most people are using banks for like renovations. Like after you've been doing it a little longer, they're definitely they are more concerned with your track record and definitely a little more stringent with their requirements. And normally they require more. So some of the pros of dealing with a small bank. lower rates. That would be, I would say, the best pro. So I'll talk about rates more, but let's just say with like a hard money lender or something, the rate may be 12%. With a community bank, it's like five. Like my last bank, I was paying like 5.75 or 6%. So it's a lot cheaper, about half the cost and interest. And then I would say the long-term relationship, because their rates are low, it offers you a place to hold loans if you're refinancing for rental properties. So I just think that the long-term relationship with a small bank is almost necessary. Like it's a good thing to have. And a lot of them can close quick, but sometimes they take a little longer to settle than some of the other lenders. The cons are stringent requirements. They are more particular about the paperwork. They want to ask you for taxes, bank statements, things like that, where a hard money lender or somebody else may not ask you for. And typically, because the rates are lower and it's a renovation project, the risk is a little bit higher. So they tend to ask for larger down payments. So, the bank that I was using here, they would give you 80% of the purchase price and they would give you 80% of the renovation. So you had to pay for 20% of the purchase, 20% of the renovation, and then you had to pay 6 months of payments up front and plus settlement costs. So although the rate was low, the cost to get into the loan was a lot more expensive than, other methods of financing. So that's them. Next, I will talk about private money lenders. Private money lenders are individuals, who are willing to fund a transaction in full or lend money for an agreed upon time and return. So in this particular case, excuse me. In this particular case, let's discuss private money lenders as individuals who are willing to fund a full transaction. Right. So a private money lender is just an individual who has money saved up, who has enough money that they're able to fund the full transaction and pretty much act as the bank when you're going to buy a property. Right. So it's really no difference. So the same documents that you would get from a bank, you get from a hard money lender. Right. So you would they would be the one who owns the mortgage, just like a Bank of America. Somebody would have a mortgage. So you'd be responsible for repaying them. And in the world of real estate, I would say that private money lenders are the best way to finance properties. So my business really started to change when I found private money lenders. And the reason that it changed is because with some of these other methods of financing properties, it's a lot of out-of-pocket money to get going, right? So because of that, it may limit the amount of properties you're able to do. So if you have, $30,000, you may be able to do one property, but if you have a private money lender, their terms are flexible, meaning you can negotiate the terms with them. So with one of my lenders, for example, when I buy a property, sometimes I'll come to settlement and pay nothing. He'll roll closing costs into the loan. If the deal is it's okay, but not great, I may come to the table and pay closing costs, but then I don't pay any payments until I sell the property, right? And so with a traditional bank or with a hard money lender, typically what you're going to be responsible for is monthly interest payments during the time of loan. And also you can negotiate the rates with private money lenders. And as far as the cons, I really haven't come across any. To me, this is the ideal way to finance properties. It just is the most simple, and it's the most flexible. So next, I will dive into debt and equity partners. So for people who are interested in learning how to renovate properties and not use your own money or not use your own credit, this is like the part of it where you'll want to pay attention, right? So individuals who invest all or part of the money required to get into a deal can leverage their credit for a loan. These people can be friends, family, other investors, lenders, or individuals with capital. Equity partner is when for percentage of the profit, I don't know what I wrote, for percentage of the profit, and a debt partner is when they're paid agreed upon amount. on their money. All right. So let me explain this a little more clear, right? So I'll start with equity partner, right? An equity partner is where I started and where I suggest you start when you are interested in renovating properties and you don't have the money. So when I started, the money was the biggest issue for me, and I'm gonna just say it because I know it's hard to believe, but believe that there's somebody out here who money isn't their problem, right? Um, their lack of knowledge is their problem. Their lack of time or desire to invest their time is the problem. So there is a piece to your puzzle. If you lack money, there's somebody who has money who lacks the other things that you have, right? So what I was able to do is I was able to make up for my lack of capital with my knowledge, right? So I was able to be like, hey, if you put up the money, then I will fix the property up. And then I'll sell it, and then we sell a property and we split the profit, right? So that'll be your equity partner. Your equity being like they get a percentage of the profit. So what I would suggest is 50-50, right? So my first equity deal, um, my partner didn't have enough to pay for the entire property. What we did is we got a hard money loan. And he, signed for it. We got a hard money loan. He had about $40,000. We used that to get the property and get the work started, right? And then once we sold the deal, once we sold the property, then we split the profit. Okay, so that's the equity side of it. Now the debt side of it is when you would borrow money from somebody, and in return for their money, you pay them an agreed upon percentage. So let's just say, for example, I'll use 12% for simple math because that's just 1%, right? So say I would have went to that same guy and I was like, hey, can I borrow $40,000 while I do this property and I'll pay you 12% a year, right? So I would be paying him 1% of that loan every month. So I'll be paying him $400 a month interest until I sell that loan. Excuse me, not that loan, forgive me, until I sell that property, all right? So I'll be paying him 1% a month until I sell that property. Now, this is where I think that there's a lot of leverage when you're willing to give somebody equity in the property, right? So if I was to offer somebody debt versus equity, it's a huge difference in what they can make, right? So let's just say it's a 6-month time from when I buy the property to when I sell the property. If I offered him 40,000, he gave me $40,000. I offered him 12% of his money. I'd be giving him 1% a month. So 400 times 6 is 2,400, right? Yeah, 2,400. He'd be getting $2,400 back in 6 months. Now, if I gave him equity in a property and 50%, let's just say we made $30,000. He gets 15, I get 15. He put up 40,000 to make 15,000 back. So it's a lot more profitable for someone potential. It's a lot more potential upsides to have equity versus being a debt partner. Um, so I suggest you guys start there, offer somebody equity in the deal, make it, close to irresistible for them as possible. And then approach it from that way. So the pros is the ability to get into deals without using your own capital. To be able to leverage somebody else's money to get you in a deal that you wouldn't be able to do. It allows you to fund multiple deals. If that person may have some money and they're willing to spread it out amongst a few loans, gain working capital. And then also I would add to this is not on here just to build your track record, like to give you, for you to build a record of completing projects to satisfaction and selling them. And then that makes you more appealing to banks and private money as you look, other people. Eventually you want to just be seen as being as risky as the market is itself. And the way that you do that is by completing multiple deals. The cons are you lose a percentage of your profit, up to half. And then the other con is, it can be higher rate on the debt. Meaning, you may have to entice somebody with a high rate to get them to feel like it's worth it to take the chance when you get going. But again, from my personal perspective, I started offering equity in the beginning, offering 50%, and I think that that's the best way to get going because I mean it is a bit more risky to the investor, and it kind of justifies the risk. Next, I'll do hard money lenders. Hard money lenders are individuals or companies that lend for investment properties. They're known for being able to fund deals fast, but they're also known for being expensive, right? So hard money lenders are what most people use to get going. Like even when, like I said, when him and I did the partnership where we were equity partners, we still went to a hard money lender to actually fund the purchase and the renovation of the property, right? So hard money is where most people start. It's the easiest one to qualify for. A lot of times they are more, now I would say it's about 50-50. But when the market is really good, I would say they're more focused on the deal than they are your personal. But what I've been saying lately is it's a combination. They want to see that the deal is good, but they also, I think, are vetting investors a little more. Um, Fast settlements. Uh, Fast settlements for sure. Like a hard money lender may be able to turn a deal around in a matter of days or, a couple of days. Whereas though, if you're going to a traditional bank, it could be a few weeks, by the time they go through underwriting, maybe they meet about loans and discuss them on a certain day every month or every couple of weeks. And, the turnaround could just be longer. So when you want to settle something fast, hard money is usually the way that most people go. And hard money is primarily for investors. They don't normally lend for anything that is going to be like a primary residence or things like that, or a 203K loan, any of those things. It's just a product for investors to be able to acquire properties, get them fixed up to the point where either they sell them or that a traditional bank would be interested in having a note. So usually it's, when a traditional bank would feel like they kind of take on that. The riskiest part of it, which is when you're buying it to fix it up before it's actually, worth what it will be worth to a bank. The cons are high rates. So usually they'll start at around 10 to 12%, and I've seen it go all the way up to 16, even I've seen like 16 and 2 points. So, it goes up and then the upfront money required. So depending on a hard money lender and depending on the relationship, some will fund like 100% of your purchase, 100% of renovation. But others, will require you to put money up. So it may be like kind of like the scenario I said with my other bank where they would give you 80% of the purchase or 80% of renovation. So it's just the upfront money can be a lot. All right. So next I'll jump into contractors. So I don't know why my picture is not working. I had a picture there, but that's all right. We'll keep going. So what makes a good contractor, right? So speed and reliability, quality of work, and price. So the way I look at this is typically I'm not going to get all three, right? And I know I'm not going to get all three. And when I do get all three, I try to keep those people very close. But in reality, normally I'll get 2 out of 3, right? So I've determined for myself that speed and reliability is a non-negotiable, right? So that needs to carry over with any contract I'm working on. I mean, working with, excuse me. So the quality of work and the price, I kind of go back and forth. It depends on what I'm working on. So if I'm working on a higher end renovation, I want speed and reliability, but I also want quality of work. And I'm aware that for that quality of work, I'm probably going to pay a higher price. Right. And if I'm doing like a rental property where I still want speed and reliability because I still need to get in and get out as fast as possible. I'm willing to sacrifice some on the quality of work. Like it doesn't have to be perfect to rent. I mean, it has to look good, but it doesn't have to be as perfect. And for that, for me willing to take a little less quality, I'm looking for a decrease in price also. So I would expect the person that's going to work for me on a rental, where I'm taking, a lower quality of work. I would expect their price to reflect that and their price to not be as high as, my contractors that I am pushing for a higher quality of work from. So, especially getting going. Oh, we got break. Excuse me. Man. So, especially getting going, I would say to primarily focus on working with licensed contractors, right? And the reason why I say that is for some of the benefits that I listed. Licensed contractors can pull permits, so I always suggest this: starting off with pulling permits. Doing things by the book, because it's like doing like a renovation is like piling, like stacking things up, making a pile. And it's like at some point you get kind of far where going back to the bottom is a bit difficult, right? So let's just say you do a house. You don't pull permits for, let's say, the trades like mechanicals, let's say plumbing, electrical, HVAC, right? You moving along, moving along, moving along. You get all the way to the end. Your drywall is up, the house is painted, your floors are in, all of that stuff. You're about ready to list the house. And the inspector drives by. He stops. He comes in the house. Hey, I didn't see where your permits at. Oh, I didn't pull permits, right? That inspector could do anything from, whatever they want to do. They could make you open up some of the walls. They could, make you open up all the walls. They could say, I want to see all the plumbing that was done here. I mean, in my opinion, and I didn't start this way. I used to think, forget permits, it slows you down, all of that stuff that I had been taught originally by my friend that I had first started working with, but I just didn't like looking over my shoulder while I was working. And beyond that, I just think that when a contractor knows you don't know what you're doing, if that contractor is trying to get over or cut corners in some way, them knowing that somebody who's more of a professional will be coming behind them to look at their work tends to make people do better work, right? So I would say also increased accountability. So that will fall under that. And then insurances, right? So licensed contractors going to be licensed, bonded, insured. Like here in Maryland, you are your licensed contractors are oversaw by the Maryland Home Improvement Commission, and the Maryland Home Improvement Commission, sets aside money where it's like if you do things on a project that aren't right, or you leave and things like that, the homeowner or the customer is able to sue, and there's a fund set up. It's called, I can't remember the exact name of it, but you can get up to like $20,000 should a licensed contractor be negligent for stuff on your job. Whereas though if somebody's not licensed, you're probably taking the smallest claims court and go through that whole process. It's no like governing body to monitor unlicensed contractors, right? So I would just say go with licensed contractors and until you feel comfortable with something different. Um, don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask for referrals from past customers to verify previous work, which is cool. But of course, everybody's going to give you that good referral. So I like to go to job sites to see what people are currently working on. I'll ask about the size of the crew that they have and their current workload, just to make sure that like they have time for my project, and to make sure that, like I said, they maintain like the speed and reliability part of it. Where to find good contractors. Um, so, excuse me. Oh, man. As I mentioned before, thank y'all for hanging in there with me. I know, like, cold's killing me. So where to find good contractors, specialty places. If you guys recall, remember I said that the like you want to get referrals from quality sources, right? Like the source counts when it comes to referrals. So the reason why I say specialty places, like I'll go to a store that primarily sells a particular item or a particular trade, right? All right. So example, my like my daughter's mom, well, her grandmother wanted to get a roof done, and she was in another state. I don't know a roof in another state, of course she asked me because she knows I'm into construction. So I'm like, well, how can I find a roofer? So what I did is I looked up roofing companies in that, not roofing companies, but roofing suppliers in that state, right? So I called there and I said, hey, I need a roof done and I'm looking for a good roofer. Could you refer me three people that come in there, do a lot of roofs and you think do good business? So the reason why I like doing this because it's a win-win, right? It's a win for the store because whoever they refer me to, more often than not, that person would buy the materials from the store that referred them. It's a win for the person because they are getting referrals from the store, but then also they want to do a good job because they're getting referrals from the store and they want to keep them coming. So, like if you don't know much or, you're getting started, I think that that's a good place to get referrals from for at least some of your primary trades, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, things like that. Right. Local Facebook groups, like online groups. Here in Baltimore, we have groups that are for real estate. So some of those groups are good. And the reason why I like those groups is because people will get on there and they'll ask for recommendations for particular trades and things like that. And then you'll see feedback from other local investors who may have used that same person. So they will, affirm or, be like, hey, that person did a great job, or hey, I used that person before, I wouldn't suggest them. And then, that kind of gives you, something to go off of because you're just trying to like find some way to qualify these people beyond just like people like, oh, go to Home Depot and meet people. Like I don't like first person referrals, like first person being I go to Home Depot and you're in a plumbing aisle and I walk up to you and I'm like, you're a plumber, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a plumber. Like I prefer it to come from some other kind of source, if that makes sense, right? So I don't like to just go straight. Um I don't like to just take people for what they say they do, is what I'm really trying to say. I prefer to get that information from like a third party. And the more credible the third party and knowledgeable the third party is about what it is I'm looking for, the better. And I always use the example of like, say, like you're looking to date somebody, right? Like one of my homeboys could say, hey, I got this girl I want you to meet. She's this, and this. But like before I move any further, I'm not just gonna be like, oh, this is my girlfriend because you referred her to me or you think that her and I would make a good fit. Like I wanna actually like talk to her and see if she's a good fit for me. But I would rather have, a friend of mine who knows me say, I think this woman would be a good fit for you than somebody who doesn't know me. So that's kind of what I'm saying. Like I think that the more reliable the source, the better, right? So other rehabbers. This is a good one for me. And when I first got going, I really didn't even talk to other rehabbers, right? Like I just kind of stayed in my own bubble. But what I realized is that I would compete, is the right word because we all are going after the same deals. I was working in a small area, but I started to network with these other rehabbers, and I realized that like although we were competition at the end of the day, it was a lot that I could learn from them, and there were resources that we could share amongst each other to help all of us out. So I may have a good concrete guy. One of my other buddies may have a good drywall guy. Or like I ran into a problem with some railings on the house and I called another guy who rehabs and I'm like, hey, can you, give me somebody who does railings? So a lot of the guys I use now, I've actually found through like other rehabbers. So I didn't mean to drag that out, but I thought it was kind of important. So these are some places you can find contractors. So managing pay. So when it comes to payment of contractors, how you pay will, is key, right? You pay too fast or too much, and people can move slow, right? Because the incentive is gone to finish, right? Or the incentive is gone to move fast for some people. And if you pay too slow or take too long, it's likely that people will slow down on the work or not show up. And so just remember that it's uncertainty on both sides. And I can speak to both because I've been a contractor and I've also been an investor. So I've been on both sides of the table and I understand it. Like, it's like a little dance there. It's like trying to give a little where, it's good faith, but not give too much where you're taking advantage of, right? Um, and I told one of my guys this before who had started investing and he didn't listen, but he learned. Just don't rush to overpay to try to prove your ability to do it. Right. So don't just be like, hey, this job is, 30,000. Let me just give you this 30,000 to show you that I can do it. You don't have to do that. And for a lot of people, like it'll remove that incentive to get your job done. Ways to help manage contractors, right? So The beauty of the modern day is like so much stuff can be done from our phone, right? Without ever even having to go in the store. So I suggest that people pay for their own materials, right? Um, and one of the good things about that is like once you remove material costs, you get to see just what labor is costing you, and you'll save some money because right, like if a contractor is going to buy labor materials, he's pricing you for both. He's going to overestimate the material side to make sure that he's not losing money. So let's just say you are getting, let's just say your basement done, right? And somebody's giving you material labor. I mean, it does remove the need to have to make these phone calls and pay for things over the phone and things like that. So you get time for that, right? So if time is your most important thing, then maybe you are willing to pay a little bit more for a contractor sourcing the materials and all of that stuff. But if you have the time to do it and ability, um, a lot of times I just have my guys go, maybe they'll pay for things or I'll pay for things over the phone, like Home Depot and stuff. Uh, and Home Depot can be a problem, right? Because it was so crowded in there. Like sometimes I have my guys complain because they can lose, and I see the lines in there. You could lose an hour or two at Home Depot in the morning. So if that's the case, I would suggest like getting the list of things that your contractor needs and ordering them online so that those things are ready, like when they get there, ordering ahead of time so that it doesn't become a problem, right? Or just pick and choose. Like some things my guys do just buy. But I mean, overall, when I'm doing a whole project, for most of the things, they are giving me labor costs, right? And materials are separate. Um, Set contractors up on draws similar to those you have in field lender, right? If a GC is doing most of your projects, set milestones. So what I'm pretty much saying here is that when you are doing a hard money loan, or even if you're using a bank, typically you'll have a draw schedule. Your draw schedule will outline the way that you are paying. You are like going to do the project. It'll say the order you're doing it, how much you're spending on each thing, and then it'll also say like when you'll be doing it, right? So set your general contract up to follow a similar schedule as far as like when you'll pay them and how you'll pay them, and it just make things so much easier. Ways to help manage the costs. So I don't do this. So I repeat, I don't do this, but I have people seen it done. But I think in order to do this efficiently, you have to find like the sweet spot of charging people, right? So if you have a contractor, and let's just say they say it's going to take me a week to do something, and you're like, okay, well, I'll give you a week and a half to do it, and after a week, let's just use days, right? Let's say it's Monday. They're like, I'll be done by next Monday, and you're like, all right, well, I'll give you to next Thursday, and after next Thursday, if you're not done, then I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars per day until it's finished, right? You can do that, right? But the tricky part of that is it can't be so much that like you've taken so much off the total where they don't want to come back and do it, right? I'm not saying that a penalty won't work, but I just think that it has to be reasonable enough where the penalty is not so severe that it removes the incentive, right? Or I've also seen people say, okay, when you're going to be done? It's Monday. When are you going to be done? I'll be done next Monday. Okay, if you're done, by Friday, or maybe even if you're done by Monday, then I'll give you an extra whatever. I don't do that either. And the reason I don't do that is because I don't want to pay you for doing your job, right? And then I don't want you to think that every time you do a job for me, you're going to be incentivized. So I don't want you to feel like, okay, because I was done. He told me last time if I get done in a week, that he'd give me extra money. Let me tell him that it's going to take 10 days and then I'll be done in a week. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to like start that trend. So I don't do that. But it's just, something worth mentioning. Maybe you want to try it. So again, like I said, when I first started, I didn't understand like scope of work. I didn't really understand the order of things. And on that first job, things were kind of just happening all over the place. And because I had no order, I didn't understand it. It allowed me to be in a situation where like I really didn't know like if it was right or wrong. I just thought as long as something looked like it was being done, then that means it was being done right. But had I known that there were an order to things, it would have been a red flag to me that things weren't being completed necessarily in any kind of order, right? So Demos first, then framing. Then the masonry work I normally do. Well, sometimes depending on the masonry, I'll do some of the stuff before. And then like if I need a new roof, do it then. But if I'm like here it says if you land a new roof, if it's patching, wait till after mechanical. So if I'm just doing like a roof where I'm going over it and it's not like too bad, then I'll wait until after mechanicals being plumbing, HVAC, and electrical are done. And the reason being is because normally like if I'm doing new plumbing or in like new HVAC with vents, they have to run like vents out of the roof. So it makes it easy. Instead of the roof having to come back twice, he just comes one time. Windows, if you order new windows, I like to order them as soon as possible because they can take a while, especially with like COVID. Sometimes they were taking like a few months. Um, and then I do my heating, my plumbing, and my electrical. I like to have my plumber and HVAC guy work together. With COVID, I kind of got away from that, and I would usually just do whoever's available first. But what I also would do is like I'll try to have them come out on site before they start, just to speak, talk to each other because a lot of the bays that they use are like the same areas. So just to get an understanding of what's going where. Then electric after that. Then once those are in and inspected, I do the insulation, the drywall, trim in the doors. Then I paint, and then after that I point up. So I'll paint the first coat, have my drywall guy come back and point up, and then I'll do like my tile. Sometimes I'll do my kitchen cabinets and vanities up here with my trim and doors if I have them already. If not, then I'll wait. And if you're doing a house and you're like ordering cabinets, once the framing is done, then make sure you get the kitchen measured, right? Because sometimes cabinets too will take a long time. So, and also when your mechanical guys come in, your plumbing and HVAC, they'll need to know like where your sink is going. If you're using and your electrician too, they'll need to know like where to put the outlets on the countertop and things like that. So you'll need a layout. So once the framing is done, call somebody to take a look at the cabinets. Then once that's done, I come with the plumbing finish, the HVAC finish, just installing the faucets, toilets, the water heater, the furnace, things like that. Then the electrician comes in. I like to wait to do the flooring now. I used to do it like way up here, like trim and like when I would paint, I would do the flooring. But I stopped doing that because doing all of this stuff, floors get scratched, they get messed up, and things like that is one reason. The second reason is also very important for the HVAC. You want, especially if you're using hardwood floors, you want the temperature to be stable, right? So you want it not to be too hot, not to be too cold. You need to let the hardwood floors, what they call acclimate. And I didn't do that before, and I had an issue twice actually. Once in the heat, once in the cold, where my floors buckled because I didn't have like the temperature stable. So it was like one time it was like summer, it was really hot, and then one time it was like really cold, right? So I do the floors kind of close to last because those two reasons. Then I come back, paint a second coat, do my punch out, like any painting, drywall, patching that I need to do, and then I do landscaping and clean up and all my inspections and things like that. And then I do my final cleanup of construction and all my final inspections, and then I stage. And for a while, I didn't stage, right? And then I found a few people, but then I found this girl here. She's really, really, she's dope. This girl Catherine, she stages all my properties now. She does such a good job. It's like when I see them empty and then I see them stage, I'm like, why did I ever like not stage properties? I just think it makes a big difference. It allows people to like visualize the space a little more, in my opinion. So I started to just add staging to my budget now. It's just it's an item. It's like became a non-negotiable. So back to the question. Like, what is your why? What is the thing that'll motivate you to just keep going when you feel like you just don't feel like it? And like I said from the beginning, we all have those days, and we all have those moments where we just don't feel like it, or you'll have these times where you're trying to figure out how to finance the deal, and you can't get somebody to say yeah, or you feel like you can't get somebody who's willing to invest in you or take a chance with you, and like we just got to really dig deep and figure out like what is more important in that moment where somebody's telling us no when we don't feel like it. Like I said, we all have those moments, we all have those times, but it's a very very important question. Um, like what will keep you motivated? Like for me, um, in addition to my daughter, it's being able to do things like this. I'm not a big speaker. I don't, I haven't really even sold much as far as like education and things like that, but just the ability to come and be able to talk to people who are trying to get going and trying to learn is important to me. Just being able to be of service and give back and like take the lessons and things that I learned and share them with people who are learners is very important. So I'm not sure if you guys are interested, but I have an ebook that you guys can purchase. I call it an ebook, but I mean, really, it's a lot more. I guess I don't know like what constitutes an ebook, but it's not like 3 pages, 80 pages, and I go through all these different parts of introducing you guys to renovation, lining up the finance, and a lot of stuff that we talked about tonight. Locating a good area, finding deals, evaluating deals, how to structure them, renovate them, and then what to do as far as selling the properties. So, a lot of stuff we talked tonight, but just in a lot more detail. Um, and I also have like some documents that I typically just have with my course, but because Mark invited me, I wanted to make sure it was like a great offer, very affordable for everybody. Uh, and some sheets I included in there, like some things I use as far as like draw schedule, which is like how I outline projects, like as far as like the order that I go in with things and how I submit paperwork to my lender so that he understands the what I need for the renovations and what I plan on doing. Um, when I use to estimate profits, so I plug in my numbers, what I'm buying for, how much I'm going to put into it, and how long it's going to take me to do it, to just make sure that I'm accounting for all the soft costs and things that we don't tend to think about. The buyer's fees, the doc prep fees, the draw inspection fees, the realtor costs, all these things. Like when we watch TV and it's like, I bought a house for 100. I put 50 into it. I sold it for 200. I made 50,000, where so like that's really not a true 50,000. It's like a lot of other things to consider when we are looking at deals that go into it, like all these costs that are associated with it that go outside of just the purchase price and the price to renovate. Include also the promissory note. Promissory note is what you would use when you do find your equity partner or your debt partner, right? And you use that to structure the deal to insure their money so that they have documentation that says how much they gave you, how much you're paying them back, the terms of the loan. So everything is clear and it's not just, like something you talked about, but also something that is in writing, right? Contract to sale for your transaction when you go to buy a property. So for everything is $47. And also it's a free guide there. So even if you're not interested in the ebook, that's fine. Still go there and go to that website. And you guys can still get the free guide. And if you are interested in the ebook, once you go to the website and put your information in, then it'll take you to the next page where you can purchase the ebook. And once you do purchase the ebook, just send me an email. It's Alex. Actually, it's info at Fix and Flip Formula, but it's on the website, so you'll see it. Just send me an email with the receipt. Let me know you got it, and then I will send you the additional documents because, like I said, that's not something that I normally give away with the ebook. But for Mark and his people, it's no problem. So no, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks for taking your time on this Wednesday evening. And I hope that the information was valuable. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I thank you guys for bearing with me. Like I said, I was a little under the weather, but I appreciate everybody hanging in there And I hope you learn some things.